touch base with the one and only Ann Coulter. You can find her at anncoulter.com. How you doing, Ann?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well. You keep tweeting the wrong station, though, when you're on the show. It's the old station.
I did just now, because I put it on Google. You're not...
No, I'm not on there anymore. They wouldn't like you on that station. They wouldn't like either one of us on that station. But we're here where we're... It's our safe space.
Update that.
They ought to, but I have yet to be arrested for, beating my family to death, so they're not going to put anything up there that's... They need bad news.
I quickly put it in Google.
It's all good. All is forgiven. You just make the check payable to cash and we'll call it even.
Okay. But yes, you're right. We won't be arrested because we're not bar owners engaging in self-defense.
Or women watching their kids play football. But let's talk about the bar owner, your latest column, Innocent Until Proven Trump Supporter. This just tragic and aggravating, disgusting case of Jake Gardner, who was attacked by a BLM mutant in his bar. There's video of it. And he ended up shooting the guy, defending himself.
While in a chokehold.
And they looked at it, the prosecutors looked at it as, I want to look at anybody who gets shot and killed. We'll take a look at it. And when they saw the evidence, they said, well, no, this was clearly a case of self-defense. And that wasn't enough for the mob, was it?
No, nor for the cowardly DA and his special prosecutor, Brian. And just by the way, the case is slightly more overwhelming than even your perfectly accurate description of the facts give. It was a ex-Marine who owned the two bars. There's a video of him linked in my column. Obviously a very sweet person. Owns these two bars. And he was jumped that night. Well, first, a street sign was thrown through the plate glass window of his bar. He's confronted by, among other people, James Scurlock, who's on video smashing up an architecture firm about 40 minutes earlier down the street.
But in a mostly peaceful way, so.
In the mostly peaceful protest, or BLM protest. This was after George Floyd died of a heart attack while in police custody, so naturally you would destroy an architecture firm. So he and his friend, he picks up a chair, he's on video, heaving the office chair into two office monitors, throwing phones around, his friend doing the same thing. 40 minutes they make it to Jake Gardner's bar. And someone, we don't know who, but in this group, pulls out from the concrete a street sign, like Old Market area, and heaves it through the plate glass window. So to keep people from storming in and doing what they've been doing to other stores, Jake Gardner and his father go outside. I won't go through it blow by blow, but his father is knocked to the ground. Jake Gardner lifts up his shirt to say he's armed, and you can hear him on some of the videos, not being particularly nasty, but a little aggressive, saying, move along, everybody just move along, and shows them the gun. The crowd is, don't screw around with this guy, he's got a gun, most of them move on. But then a lovely young lady leaps on Jake Gardner's back, knocking him into the ground. Another peaceful protester jumps on top of him. Jake Gardner shoots two warning shots, so those two flee off. And 3 seconds later, James Scurlock jumps on Gardner's back, pinning his arm and getting him in a chokehold. I think it's Paul Butler has a book now about, stop the murder of Black America, no chokeholds. We've heard quite a bit about chokeholds, the Eric Garner case here in New York. I noticed that when a cop uses it to subdue a suspect whom the cop has to subdue, James Scurlock did not have to jump on a bar owner and get him in a chokehold. It's considered premeditated murder. Anyway, he has him in the chokehold, so that's when Jake Gardner shoots over his shoulder. And it wasn't the DA, the Democratic DA. They immediately arrested, or not arrested, but brought in for questioning, I guess. Jake Gardner, that's a Saturday night.
Well, that's what you want to happen, though. Right now, It sounds like a normal procedure. You find out what happened.
Hold him, but I'm just saying, he wasn't getting kid glove treatment. That sounds like self-defense to me, officer. What do you think? No. He's brought in immediately. He's held until 11 p.m. Sunday night. for questioning. So he's being questioned for, 24 hours as the deputy DA of Omaha, Nebraska, and all of the homicide detectives go through all of the videos. Oh my gosh, there were a lot of videos. You can see some of them online, many of them being described in various local newspapers, some of them linked. Anyway, they pieced together the whole thing. The DA holds a press conference. They've put together the videos so you can pretty much see what happened that night. And he says, my deputy DA, and all of the homicide detectives spent 12 hours going through these videos, and our conclusion was unanimous self-defense. But the community didn't like that. So
they showed up at the protesters showed up at the prosecutor's house, did they not?
Yes, and all kinds of vitriol and lies, as we're seeing in the Breonna Taylor case, as in Louisville. All kinds of lies about Jake Gardner. Of course, all of your listeners know. Let's see, what was he called? Oh, yes, white supremacist.
Yes.
Despite the fact, not on video, no racial language, and one of the victim's friends himself told the police, no, he didn't use any racial language. This is just this fantasy that's supposed to allow the summary execution of white people. They use the N-word. No, that turns out to be total BS. But Nebraska state senators repeated it, called it cold-blooded murder, called him a white supremacist, and a homophobe, because he, after a woman was attacked in the ladies' room of his bar by a guy in a dress, he said, transgenders, unless you've gone the full route, you're using the unisex bathroom from now on. That became a huge cause celeb in the transgender community for like 2 years. So he already had a bullseye on his back. The media lied about him, protests, lies. So the cowardly DA, although he had concluded he believed self-defense, he spent a lot of time...
Unanimously self-defense. It wasn't like, well, it was 5-4, like a Supreme Court decision.
Right, exactly. So he calls in a black special prosecutor who's going to relook at the investigation, who apparently is... like a Crump-type character, and he presents his case to the grand jury. I'm watching Crump on TV right now.
Me too.
Breonna Taylor case, demanding that the grand jury proceedings be made public. Oh, yeah, well, I want them made public in Omaha, Nebraska. Fine on Breonna Taylor, but let's see him in Omaha, Nebraska. I want to see what this Fred Franklin presented to the grand jury, because he produced, and I want the names of the grand jurors. As long as we're playing games like this, I want the names, and actually producing the grand jury report.
Well, they came back with an indictment against Jake.
Many indictments for insane things, terroristic threats, manslaughter, assault with a deadly weapon. The terroristic threat was when he backed away after his father had been knocked to the ground, something the New York Times newspaper of record reported as someone pushed Gardner's father. So knocked him on his back. You know, the media is evil. You know, I have my problems with the way Donald Trump has been president. Yes. Not the things he promised to do, which were excellent. But fake news is downplaying it. I mean, the media accounts of what happened were outrageous and defamatory. The landlord of Gardner's bars immediately evict him, send some flowery, sanctimonious, saccharine letter to the victim's family. The victim's family has raised now, heading to $300,000 on GoFundMe. Poor Jake Gardner, whom the real elected DA said was innocent, is now facing 95 years in prison, is getting death threats. The mob is after him in Omaha. He has lost his source of income with his 2 bars, so some of his friends put up
they set up the GoFundMe. And the lefties who run GoFundMe, as we've heard horror stories of them all the time, he was trying to raise $15,000 for his legal defense, and they deleted it. He was raising money, he'd raised a lot of money, and then they said nope, took all that money back from him, refunded it to the people who gave it to him.
And tried to post another one. So GoFundMe official position is no fair trials for white men accused of shooting black men. No, we do not believe in a fair trial. They seem not to understand the point of a trial. The point of raising money for a legal defense is, I'm not guilty of this horrible thing you're accusing me of. It's not defending the horrible thing the person is accused of. So Jake Gardner's out in California. He's facing 95 years in prison. The world is against him. Sadly, Trump, and neither did I, said anything. I was planning on writing about this last week, but I thought it was more urgent to alert the president to my great idea that he should, my many great ideas for him winning re-election. And I was always kind of casually planning on writing about Jake Gardner this week. Well, I never got the chance because Jake Gardner, when a warrant was put out for his arrest, no way to defend himself, no source of income, the world against him, committed suicide last weekend. And that is all on the DA and special DA's head and the grand jurors.
And there will be no consequences. There will be no consequences. The DA will probably be reelected.
Don't even know. I mean, for Pete's sake, I keep hearing on TV, say her name, say her name. Yeah, like nobody's heard that name. Are you kidding me?
Right.
No one actually has heard Jake Gardner's name.
It's a horrible story and horrible people behind it. But the left is rewarded for being horrible, and that's the problem is ultimately us, is it not?
Well, the media is very, very evil, and I think it needs to be exterminated and ended. I was hoping that was the one thing we could get out of the Trump administration, that most of the world, most of the country had woken up to see. They've just gotten so bad.
They do poll less favorably than toenail fungus now, so they've got that going for them. It's just... But,
I mean, it's still influential. They've managed to create these two panics simultaneously.
Well, we need, and we crave information. People crave information. I don't know what's going on in the world. So even though, NBC sucks, you've got to find out what you can kind of find out what's going on somewhat. You got to read through the lines and everything, but they're the existing media is the only game in town. The left has all these billionaires that are willing to fund everything and every cause, like bail, here's money for bail, here's money for this, here's money for that. Why doesn't some rich white conservative stereotype that the left hates, if they existed,
right? The Boogaloo boy. Why did
come out and the Koch brothers, the rich white guy who's sitting there slighting cigars with $100 bills, going. If they were really as evil as they say, they'd buy a news organization. You can pry the hands of some of they got money, they could buy a majority stake in something or start something of their own.
That's true, but then they'd go the way of Fox, so what good would it do?
At least you get a good couple of years.
The way you can get the truth, and the way I think most of us have been getting the truth over the past few years, which is something important that the Republicans should have done. Wow, that's a long list.
But it's
been Twitter. And I suppose...
Buy Twitter. Come on, David Koch or whichever Koch brother is still alive, buy Twitter. But they don't. And so they get this stereotype of the rich white guy. But the rich white people are helping the Democrat.
Okay, I totally endorse your idea, but until that happens, much easier just to force Twitter and Facebook to do what they're supposed to be doing. They go to Congress and say, we're not publishers. I'm sure your listeners have heard this many, many times, but it's a very simple point. I don't know why our elected Republicans can't grasp it. We're not publishers. We're just a bulletin board, so you can't allow us to be sued for the stuff people post. And then, oh my gosh, I'm Pinch Sulzberger. I'm going to go in and edit things I don't like. Well, I mean, clearly that is what Twitter and Facebook and Instagram are doing. It's the same thing with Kyle Rittenhouse, the kid in Kenosha, who is being attacked in what certainly appears to be a very valid case of self-defense. Shoots three Antifa, killing two of them, shooting the arm of the other one, which
the one with the gun.
Yeah, I was going to say, that is such amazing shooting. You always have people who know nothing about guns asking why the cop didn't just shoot the perp holding the gun. Why didn't you just shoot him in the arm? Okay, you try that sometime. And this guy, this kid, Kyle Rittenhouse actually does it. A guy is coming at him with a gun and he shoots his arm. Oh my gosh, what a marksman that kid is. In any event, someone put up on Facebook, I forget who it was, Mark Dice, I think, on Twitter. Anyway, he put up a video of Kyle Rittenhouse earlier in the evening, and there are many such videos of. I think the New York Times the New York Times wrote this up. So maybe Facebook should be banning the New York Times. That earlier in the evening, Kyle Rittenhouse had been providing first aid to protesters. He wasn't there, I hate protesters. I want to hurt a protest. No, he said, I'm here to help. In an interview, I'm here to help protect people and property. And there he is providing first aid to protesters. That's all the video was. Facebook goes in and takes that video down.
Because you can't have that narrative out there. You know that, Ann.
My tweets, as well as Kyle Rittenhouse's lawyers' tweets, sympathetic to Kyle Rittenhouse, taken down by Twitter. So look, either you're a publisher and you can be sued for anything anybody posts, because you are clearly, deciding, well, I'm going to publish this, I'm not going to publish that. And this is that famous Section 230. If it did that alone, Congress took away the Section 230 protection to allow trial lawyers to sue Facebook and Twitter for things anyone posts, unless it's, obviously, we have a First Amendment, but you can't post things like, I'm hiring for a contract murder, but not to worry, we have an entire body of law around that. Can't post stuff that's an ongoing, continuing crime, but other than that, they should just shut up, leave us alone, and that's how the truth has gotten out there. But no, instead the social media companies are becoming much more aggressive right now, and I would think something along the same lines could be done with private companies like GoFundMe.
Well, you would think that this could all be done that way. Very simply, very quickly, it just takes the will. Man, who knows? Look, Ann, we're out of time. AnnCoulter.com, the piece is Innocent Until Proven Trump Supporter. It's just it's a sad story of Jake Gardner, who's railroaded, to say the least. Ann, thanks for coming on. Okay, thanks for letting the world know about this.
On your new radio station.
There you go. We'll be right back.